You didn't stumble on this by mistake. You were tuned in, because there's a frequency, hidden but constant, that only certain people ever find. And if you're here, it means your system, your whole being, already aligned with it enough to pick up the signal. Think of it like an old radio. You can spin the dial endlessly, hearing static, fragments of voices, bits of music. But when you land exactly on the right station, suddenly the noise dissolves. The message becomes clear. This is one of those moments, and I want you to notice something. People who keep missing their breakthroughs often think it's because they're unlucky, or they're not chosen, or life is against them. But what if the opposite is true? What if the fact you even found this message proves the field is already calling you into the version of yourself that wins? This isn't about hustling harder, or begging reality to give you a chance. It's about realizing you've already been broadcasting a signal, and the station you're tuned to right now is shaping the life you wake up in. I know you've felt the static before, the endless refreshing, waiting for that text, the moments of staring at a bill you're not sure how to cover, the quiet ache of comparison when you scroll past someone else's highlight reel. That's the noise, the distortion. But behind it, the clear broadcast never stopped transmitting. And here's the paradox. The clearer you become inside, the clearer the world around you begins to rearrange. It's not magic, it's mechanics. You're about to see why. Because in the next moment, I'm going to reveal the single mechanism that makes winners different. And it has nothing to do with willpower. There's a reason you feel drawn here right now. Your system is already searching for the station of your future. And here's what most people don't realize. The universe isn't deciding whether you deserve it. It's simply responding to the frequency you hold, the one you're broadcasting every second without even noticing. Think about how a radio works. The songs are already in the air. Every style, every station, every mood, rock, jazz, news, silence, they're all surrounding you right now, invisible, overlapping, but you only hear the one you're tuned to. Your dial makes the selection, not the sky. Your consciousness works the same way. Infinite timelines are layered here and now. There's a version of you who always feels behind, struggling for scraps. There's another who moves with ease, receiving calls, money, opportunities at just the right time. And the gap between those lives isn't distance, it's frequency. Winners aren't born on a better station. They've trained their inner dial. They've realized the static of fear, doubt, and comparison is just interference. And by steadying themselves, by embodying the signal, they lock onto a broadcast that was always available. Notice how this dissolves the old question of, when will it happen? If you're waiting for reality to catch up before you feel different, you're stuck scanning the wrong band. But if you learn to feel the frequency of already being, the outer world doesn't have a choice. It synchronizes. Here's the pivot most people miss. Your nervous system is the tuner. If it's flooded with stress, it keeps slipping between channels. You'll hear a flash of the right station, then lose it again. That's why sometimes you feel aligned and unstoppable, and other times you feel blocked and invisible. The dial isn't broken. It just hasn't been stabilized. The winners you admire aren't lucky. They're coherent. They've built enough safety in their system to stay tuned, even when static tries to creep back in. That's what makes their reality look like flow. And here's the real reason you're here. On some level, you already know the signal of your future self. That's why this feels like recognition more than information. You're not learning something new. You're remembering a frequency you once trusted. But there's still a dangerous myth that keeps even awakened people spinning the dial endlessly, never locking into the station fully. And until you see it clearly, you'll keep getting pulled back into noise. So let's break it wide open. The myth is simple but devastating. Most people believe they'll finally land on their winning frequency by forcing reality to bend to their will. They think if they just push harder, visualize longer, hustle faster, then maybe, finally, the station will come in clear. But tuning doesn't work like that. You can't grab the invisible airwaves with your hands and twist them into the right melody. You adjust yourself to the signal, not the other way around. Here's the trap. When you're caught in the mindset of forcing, you're still broadcasting the frequency of lack. You're saying with every cell, I don't have it yet. And the radio responds faithfully, echoing back more static, more delay. Let's put this into something you've lived. Imagine this. You send a message to someone you care about, maybe someone you're hoping to hear from quickly. Minutes pass, then an hour, then nothing. Immediately, your body starts shifting frequency. The static grows. You replay what you said, you worry if it was too much, too little, too late. You open the app again and again, as if staring at the silence could force an answer. That loop, that anxious refreshing, is exactly how most people approach their dreams. They believe if they just keep checking, keep pushing, keep insisting, the universe will finally respond. But what's really happening is that their nervous system is slipping further off station, into noise. And here's what changes everything. The winners don't wait for the reply to decide how they feel. They tune first. They choose to stabilize their frequency in the station of already being chosen, already being valued. And somehow, mysteriously but predictably, the reply comes, not because they chased it, but because they became it. This is why the old saying still rings true. You don't manifest what you want. You manifest what you are. And notice how it flips the whole game. Instead of scanning endlessly, you become the station. You embody the broadcast so steadily that reality can't help but tune itself to you. But here's the deeper layer most teachers leave out. The human system isn't just thought-based. It's biological. Your heart, your breath, your nervous system all decide if your signal is clear or scrambled. If your body doesn't feel safe, it won't hold the station, no matter how strong your affirmations sound. Which means the real turning point isn't more effort, it's building inner safety. It's learning how to calm the static at its source. And that's exactly where we're heading next. If your mind is the dial, your nervous system is the hand that turns it. Without steadiness there, you'll always slip in and out of the signal. That's why some days you feel unstoppable. Messages flow, synchronicities line up. You almost laugh at how effortless it feels. Then the very next day, it's static again. It's not that the broadcast disappeared. It's that your system couldn't hold the tune. Here's what most people overlook. Your body has to believe it's safe before it will allow the higher frequency to stabilize. If you're tense, braced, and running survival programs, your broadcast gets scrambled. Stress hormones make you feel jittery, like a shaking hand trying to fine-tune a radio knob. The songs are still playing, but the melody comes out broken. Think of coherence as that moment when the hand is still, steady, aligned. Your heart and brain lock into rhythm. Your body exhales, and suddenly the signal is crisp. This is why nervous system regulation isn't optional. It's the hidden gateway into holding your winning timeline. Let me give you a small practice you can try right now. It takes less than a minute. Place one hand over your heart, one over your lower belly. Close your eyes if you can. Inhale gently through your nose to a slow count of 4, letting your belly rise under your hand. Hold for just a moment, not forcing. Then exhale to a slow count of 6, feeling your shoulders drop. Do this twice. Now, as you breathe, imagine that with each exhale, the static in your field dissolves, like dust clearing off a dial. With each inhale, the station of your future self grows clearer, stronger, more solid. It may sound simple, but notice the effect. Your body begins to settle, your mind softens, and suddenly you're closer to the frequency that already belongs to you. This is coherence, the state where your signal stops flickering and begins broadcasting steadily into the field. And here's what's extraordinary. Once you create even 30 seconds of this coherence, reality starts responding differently. The conversation you were dreading flows more smoothly. The message you were waiting on finally lands. The bill that seemed impossible suddenly finds a solution. Not because the outer world magically changed first, but because your station became clear enough to let it align. But coherence alone isn't the end. There's another trap that keeps people cycling between temporary highs and old patterns, and unless you see it, you'll confuse fleeting states for lasting transformation. We need to talk about the difference between state and identity. Here's where so many seekers get caught. They confuse a temporary state with a permanent identity. A state is like catching a song for a moment before the signal slips again. You meditate, you journal, you do the breath work, and for a short while you feel lit up, expanded, certain that you've cracked the code. But then life presses in, the email unanswered, the bill on the table, the silence after a message. And just like that, you're back in static. It doesn't mean the practice failed. It means you were only visiting the station, not living on it. Identity, on the other hand, is residence. It's not a weekend trip to coherence. It's moving your whole self onto the frequency so completely that slipping off it feels unnatural. Winners aren't people who have perfect states all the time. They're people who have shifted identity so deeply that their normal is tuned to the broadcast of their future self. Think of the radio again. A state is twisting the dial until the station comes in, nodding to the song, and then wandering away. An identity shift is deciding, this is my station now. This is where I live. You stop chasing clarity. You embody it. This is why affirmations and surface-level hacks can feel hollow. They decorate your state, but they don't anchor your identity. You can repeat "I am abundant" 100 times, but if your body still identifies as someone who scrambles to survive, your dial will wobble back to static. So how do winners shift from state to identity? They practice coherence until it stops being a special event and starts being who they are. They stop asking, "When will it happen?" and begin broadcasting, "It's already happening through me." They don't borrow the frequency, they become it. And this shift is powerful because once your identity anchors, your nervous system stops questioning. You no longer wake up asking if you're on the right path. You wake up tuned. And from there, reality simply reflects what you've already decided to embody. But here's where it gets even more fascinating. When your identity changes, it doesn't just change your feelings, it changes the timeline you occupy. Different opportunities, people, and events begin showing up, not randomly, but because you've stepped onto a different broadcast entirely. And that's the cliff most people never cross. They stop at feel-good practices and never realize that identity is what selects the parallel life they wake up in. So let's step over that edge together. Let's talk about how your identity doesn't just change your inner world, it pulls you onto an entirely new timeline. When your identity shifts, it's not just an inner upgrade, it's a literal station change. Every version of you already exists on a different broadcast. The one who doubts, the one who thrives, the one who gives up, the one who creates miracles. They're all here now, like overlapping stations on the dial. And here's the extraordinary part. You don't attract a new life from scratch. You tune into the one already playing. Think of it. When you twist the dial from static to a clear station, the music doesn't suddenly begin to exist. It was always in the air. You just weren't aligned with it. Your identity is the same. When you stabilize as the version of you who belongs on the winner's frequency, you start hearing the soundtrack of that life. Let me bring this into something you've probably lived. Picture this. You're staring at your bank account, feeling that familiar pressure in your chest. A bill is due. You don't know how you'll cover it. In that moment, one identity comes online, the struggler, the one who's always just behind, always patching holes in the boat. And as long as you're fused with that identity, your nervous system broadcasts the frequency of scarcity, and the timeline that matches it keeps playing louder. But imagine instead that you catch yourself. You breathe. You tune. You step into the identity of someone who always finds a way, someone who knows that the field delivers when the signal is steady. You begin to embody a winner's broadcast, not with delusion, but with trust. And from that station, suddenly, possibilities appear. A side job you'd forgotten about, a friend offering support, a delayed payment arriving. The timeline shifts, not because money fell from the sky, but because you moved onto the station where solutions already existed. Notice how subtle yet radical this is. States flicker in and out, identities hold the channel, and the field doesn't negotiate. It responds faithfully to whichever broadcast you commit to. This is why winners feel like they live in another reality altogether. They do. Their dial is locked onto a station most people don't trust themselves to hold. And here's where it deepens. If identity selects the timeline, then the real power isn't just in choosing once, it's in training yourself to return, again and again, until the new identity becomes unshakable. That's when the station becomes your new normal, and life stops looking like chance and starts looking like orchestration. But how do you actually do that day by day without getting lost in static again? There's a toolkit, simple, repeatable moves, that helps anchor you into the broadcast of your future self until it becomes second nature. Now that you see how identity is the dial, the question becomes, how do you hold it steady? How do you keep from slipping back into the static of your old station when life throws distractions, pressures, or doubts at you? The winners don't rely on willpower. They have simple protocols, anchoring moves that remind the body and mind. This is my frequency now. Think of them like tuning rituals, quick recalibrations that keep you locked onto your chosen station. Let me share a few with you. 1. Breath reset. At least once a day, pause for a 30-second breath sequence. Inhale for 4, hold softly, exhale for 6. As you do, imagine the radio static dissolving, leaving only the clear signal of your future self. This tiny act tells your nervous system, safety first, and safety is the soil where coherence grows. 2. Identity cue. Choose one physical gesture or posture that belongs to your winner's frequency. It could be standing tall with shoulders back, touching your heart with confidence, or even a subtle smile. Whenever you catch yourself wobbling, step into that gesture. It's a way of reminding your body who you are now. Not the struggler, not the chaser, but the broadcaster of a new station. 3. Timeline journal. Each morning, write one sentence in present tense as if you're already living the reality you desire, not a list of wishes, one declaration of identity. For example, I am the version of me who receives with ease. This isn't about fantasy. It's about instructing your system to hold the dial on the station where that life is already playing. 4. Signal in community. When possible, surround yourself with others who resonate with the frequency you're choosing. Just as radios can pick up interference from nearby stations, your nervous system tunes to the field you're immersed in. Even reading or hearing someone who embodies the identity you're stepping into helps strengthen your broadcast. Now here's the key. Don't treat these as chores. Treat them as a ritual of belonging. Every time you do them, you're proving to yourself that you're not just visiting the frequency, you're living on it. And since this isn't just a transmission but a shared field, let's seal it together right now. Drop into the comments and write, I am already living my future. Let the quantum field register your declaration. Because once you speak it, not just think it, you broadcast it into the shared signal. And that matters more than you know. But even with these tools, there are 3 traps almost everyone falls into. 3 ways the signal gets scrambled again. And if you don't see them clearly, you'll keep wondering why your life feels like static even when you've done the practices. Let's name them. Even with the strongest toolkit, there are traps, subtle sabotages, that pull your dial off station. The winners aren't immune to them. They've just learned to recognize them quickly and recalibrate. Let me name the 3 most common. The first trap is urgency. When you feel like everything has to happen right now, you start twisting the dial frantically. You're no longer listening for the signal. You're scrambling. Urgency floods the nervous system with static. And what happens when you rush to tune a radio? You overshoot the station every time. The field doesn't respond to panic. It responds to presence. The antidote here is slowing down on purpose, even when your body insists you can't afford to. That single pause says, I trust my signal more than the noise. The second trap is split signals. This happens when part of you is tuned to one frequency, but another part is whispering a contradiction. You say, I'm ready for love, but inside, your body remembers heartbreak and broadcasts fear. You declare abundance, but deep down, you're holding an identity of struggle. It's like trying to listen to 2 stations at once. The overlap creates distortion. The way through is radical honesty, noticing the whispers underneath the declarations and gently bringing them into coherence. Sometimes this means admitting what feels unsafe, so the system can regulate and unify behind one clear broadcast. The third trap is over-control. Winners don't micromanage the signal, they embody it. But when fear creeps in, people try to grip reality tighter, forcing outcomes, scripting every detail. Over-control is like leaning over the radio, shaking it, demanding it play your song faster. All that does is break the tuner. The paradox is that the tighter you grip, the weaker the broadcast becomes. The counter move is surrender, not as passivity, but as trust. You set the station, then let the music play. Here's the pivot. Every one of these traps, urgency, split signals, over-control, can be neutralized not by more effort, but by returning to coherence. When the nervous system steadies, urgency dissolves, contradictions soften, and the grip loosens. It's not about fixing every detail, it's about tuning the dial back to stillness. And the truth is, these traps aren't random tests, they're invitations. Each time you face one, the field is asking, will you wobble back into static, or will you prove your station is steady now? Because once you practice this enough, you won't just hold your signal in meditation or rituals, you'll carry it into the ordinary flow of daily life. Walking, eating, talking, scrolling, it all becomes part of the broadcast, and that's exactly where we go. Here's the true test of frequency work. Not whether you can tune in during a quiet meditation, but whether you can hold the station while life is happening in real time. Because anyone can feel aligned in stillness. Winners are the ones who carry the signal into their daily walk through the noise. Think of your day as one long broadcast. Every step, every bite of food, every glance at your phone is a moment where you're either reinforcing your chosen station or slipping back into static. And the beauty is, you don't need perfection. You only need awareness. Start with walking. Most people walk in a rush, shoulders forward, lost in thought. That body language broadcasts stress. It scrambles the tuner. Instead, try this. As you walk, imagine your chest as a transmitter, sending out the clear station of your future self with each step. Shoulders back, breath steady, stride calm. Suddenly, a simple walk becomes an act of broadcasting coherence. Now, eating. How often do you rush through meals, scrolling, or worrying? That's static. Food is energy entering your system, and the state you eat in imprints the signal. Winners turn meals into moments of tuning. Before your first bite, pause. One breath. One moment of gratitude, even if silent. That single gesture infuses your field with coherence, reminding the tuner, this is my station, and conversations. Notice how quickly we can slip into complaining, gossiping, or defending. Each one is a frequency leak, pulling you back into static. Instead, practice micro-choices. Asking one question that uplifts, listening with presence instead of reacting, speaking one sentence as your future self would. You don't have to rewrite the whole conversation. Just slip in one frequency marker and watch how the dialogue shifts. Even scrolling can be transformed. Normally, comparison eats the signal alive. But what if, instead of spiraling into envy, you use those moments as reminders of your chosen identity? When you see someone thriving, whisper internally, that's the station I belong to as well. Instead of resistance, you turn the static into confirmation. This is the art of daily integration. You stop treating your frequency as something fragile, only available on a meditation cushion, and you weave it into the mundane. And when your nervous system learns, we live here now, your station stops flickering. It becomes durable. But here's the cliff most people never climb. Once you integrate in daily life, the broadcast grows so steady that it doesn't just affect your small actions. It begins to reshape entire domains: relationships, health, creativity, purpose. And the expansion is undeniable. So let's step into that expansion together. When your daily life becomes the broadcast, something extraordinary begins to happen. The field doesn't just respond with small synchronicities. Entire domains of your life start to rearrange. Because once the signal is steady, it expands outward like ripples in water. Let's begin with relationships. Think of how often people approach love and connection from static. They're broadcasting fear of abandonment, replaying old stories of not being chosen. That signal pulls them into timelines where rejection repeats itself. But when you shift your identity into someone already safe, already loved, you attract connections that match. You stop chasing validation, and people feel the calm gravity of your field. Relationships stop being about proving and start being about resonance. Now, creativity. So many brilliant ideas never come alive because the signal is scrambled by self-doubt. The person who says, I'll create when I feel inspired, is like someone waiting for the radio to tune itself. But winners know, inspiration is the station you choose. When you broadcast coherence, ideas flow as if they were already waiting in the air. They were. You just tuned in. Health is another domain that responds. Stress and static wreak havoc on the body. But when your system broadcasts safety, the body softens into healing states. The immune system functions more clearly. Energy rises. Even recovery becomes faster. It's not mystical. It's the biology of coherence translating into the biology of repair. And then there's purpose. Most people wait for purpose to arrive like a lightning bolt, but purpose is a station too. It doesn't appear from nowhere. It emerges when you consistently live from the identity of someone who belongs. The broadcast reveals what was hidden because you're finally tuned to the frequency where clarity exists. Now let me bring this into a lived scenario. Imagine you're walking into a job interview. For most people, that moment is filled with static, anxiety, performance pressure, trying to be enough. And in that state, their frequency communicates desperation, even if their words sound confident. But when you enter as the version of yourself who already belongs on the station of success, everything shifts. Your handshake carries ease. Your answers land with weight. The interviewer feels your field more than your resume. And 9 times out of 10, the opportunity clicks into place. Not because you forced it, but because you tuned to the timeline where you already got the job. This is what happens when your station expands beyond rituals and into every corner of your life. Your reality begins to harmonize with the signal so thoroughly that obstacles don't vanish. They simply dissolve into opportunities. But there's still one more layer. Because beneath all the tools and metaphors, there's a deeper truth. This entire process isn't about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you were always designed to be. And that takes us into the spiritual dimension of frequency. At the deepest level, this work isn't about fixing yourself or building a new identity. It's about remembering. Because the frequency of your future self isn't outside of you. It's woven into your design, encoded in your field from the very beginning. Think of the radio again. The songs don't start existing the moment you tune to them. They've been playing all along. The act of tuning doesn't create, it reveals. In the same way, when you align with the frequency of the winner's timeline, you're not fabricating something new. You're revealing what was always waiting beneath the static. This is why so many ancient teachings echo the same paradox. Surrender is power. When you try to control, grip, and force, you cut yourself off from the broadcast. But when you soften, when you trust, when you allow, suddenly the field moves on your behalf. Synchronicities unfold, doors open, people appear, not because you muscled them into existence, but because you stopped interfering with the divine station. And if you've ever had that eerie moment where life feels scripted, where the right call comes the exact minute you thought of it, or the stranger says the words you needed to hear, you've already glimpsed what it means to live from this place. That's not coincidence. That's orchestration. That's what happens when your frequency is coherent enough to let the universe play its song through you. It also explains why winners often feel chosen. It's not that the field loves them more, it's that they finally surrendered into the current carrying them. They trusted the unseen timing enough to stop thrashing against it. They let the music play instead of demanding silence until they approved the song. Here's the paradox. The more you let go, the more power you feel. The less you chase, the more life brings to you. The moment you stop proving, life begins moving. And it's not because you've tricked the universe, it's because you're no longer splitting your signal with resistance. So the real spiritual leap is not about learning more techniques. It's about yielding into the truth that your winning frequency is your birthright. You don't have to create it. You only have to remember it, stabilize it, and live inside it. And once you truly grasp that, you arrive at the final piece of this journey, the resolution. The moment where the metaphor of the radio becomes more than a teaching, it becomes a living image of who you are now. And that's exactly where we close. So here we are at the end of the transmission. And if you've stayed with me this far, it means the signal was meant for you. You didn't just hear words, you felt the frequency calling you deeper, reminding you of what you already carry. Think back to the radio. Static, fragments, half-heard songs. That's what most people live in every day. They spin the dial endlessly, never realizing the station was always there, waiting. But you've just tuned. You've recognized that the winning frequency isn't somewhere out there. It's in you broadcasting now. And this is the moment where you decide. Do you treat this as another temporary state, something that lifts you for a few hours and then fades? Or do you anchor it as your identity, the station you live on from this day forward? Because the field is listening. The broadcast doesn't lie. I want you to see yourself clearly for what you are. Not a seeker of the signal, but the signal itself. Not someone trying to prove worthiness, but someone who finally remembers that they were chosen the moment they arrived here. Every future you've longed for is already playing. You only need to hold the dial steady long enough for the music to fill your life. And here's the image I'll leave you with. Imagine walking out into your day tomorrow as if your whole body were a transmitter tower, humming with the exact frequency of your future self. With each breath you're broadcasting, with each word you're transmitting, and the world around you, unable to resist, begins to harmonize with your song. That's not fantasy. That's coherence. That's destiny. So, let's lock this in together. Share in the comments. I am already living my future. Let your words ripple into the field, amplifying the signal for you and for everyone who finds this transmission after you. Because only winners find this frequency, and you've already proven you're one of them.